We're not born leaders. We develop our leadership. And no matter how anointed we are, when it comes to dealing with souls, we cannot afford to leave our leadership development to trial and error.
I'm your host and facilitator, Billy Ryan, and I want to welcome you to the Black Church Leadership Podcast with Master Life Coach and NLP practitioner, Apostle Martin Wilson. Apostle Wilson's goal for creating this podcast is to help you, as a church leader, to remove the spiritual, mental, and psychological hindrances that keep you from being the best version of yourself. We now go to our broadcast already in progress.
Grace and peace. This is Bishop Martin Wilson, and welcome to episode number 12 of the Black Church Leadership Podcast. So listen, over the next 3 episodes, we're going to explore 3 main challenges that leaders and pastors face when their leaders are not adequately trained, or when they themselves are not adequately trained and able to train others. This can cause a major impact on the church as a whole. So now, as leaders and pastors, we've got to prioritize leadership development. Ministry and leadership training are interconnected, yet they're very distinct. They're 2 very distinct creatures. Ministry training equips a leader to preach the gospel, where leadership training and leadership development is the ability that is given to and trained to the leader so that they can effectively lead people. So now, let's face it. I have a master's in theology, but my seminary education did not prepare me in any way to be able to properly lead people. I had to learn, I had to study, I had to develop those skills for myself. And it's critical to recognize that in leadership, we have to develop this thing. It's not something that's innate. We're not born leaders. We develop our leadership. And no matter how anointed we are, when it comes to dealing with people, when it comes to dealing with souls, we cannot afford to leave our leadership development to trial and error. Now, I believe that when you do that, you're going to become disheartened. You're going to be just like Moses. You're going to miss your promised land when you fail to deliberately put forth the effort to develop your leadership skills. So the first issue that leaders face when they're not properly trained and they're not training others, and how does it impact the church? Number 1, the first problem that we see is a lack of communication. A lack of communication. Not properly training leaders and not properly training yourself as a leader, you're going to struggle to be able to communicate effectively with people. And we all know when communication is not in line, the result is there's going to be misunderstanding, there's going to be confusion, there's going to be conflict, and all of this is going to begin to undermine the very mission and the goal of the people. We're supposed to be bringing people in, but when we don't know how to properly communicate, we're going to find ourselves running off people. Now, it may not be you as the senior pastor, but when you don't put forth that same effort to train your people, every leader on your team is carrying 2 buckets. 2 buckets. In one bucket, there's water, and in the other bucket, there is gasoline. Through training them how to properly communicate and getting them that leadership training, you teach them what bucket to use in what circumstance. Because there are some situations where a little gasoline needs to be thrown on the fire to get things moving, to get that momentum moving. So to prevent the issue of a lack of communication, it's important for us as leaders to receive some kind of comprehensive training in effective communication. And within that, when I say effective communication, it should cover a range of topics. Number 1, it should have active and empathetic listening. Active and empathetic listening. So now what is that? Active and empathetic listening means that I practice being fully engaged. I am concentrated on what the speaker is saying. What is my intent? I want to understand their perspective. A lot of times we're talking with people and we immediately check out because we're not concentrating and we're not present to really find out what is their perspective on this. And you have to be willing to move your perspective to the side and be able to try to understand. And then you have to respond with empathy. You respond with understanding. And this type of listening means that you're paying attention not only to what they're saying verbally, but you're also paying attention to their nonverbal cues. What is their body language? What is their body language saying? And this helps us to build strong relationships. It helps us improve the relationship throughout the entire ministry when the communication is improved. The next part of that training needs to be clear and concise speaking. Now, clear and concise speaking is straightforward. It's a straightforward manner. There's no unnecessary words. There's no complex language. We're just simply giving people the message. We want to make sure that the message is given in an effective manner. Now, furthermore, leaders should be encouraged to continue. After you get leadership training, you should continue developing your communication skills through some kind of training or personal development. And what this does is it ensures that that leader is effectively going to be able to serve the congregation. Their message will be communicated clearly and consistently. What a great investment it is for us to have some kind of training that deals with communication with our leaders. And it's such an investment that will produce a positive impact on the entire community. It's going to strengthen relationships and it's going to build a sense of belonging. Another skill that we need to pull into our communication is conflict management in a constructive and respectful manner. Conflict management. We kind of touched on this a few minutes ago when we were talking about not wanting to run people off. Conflict management involves being able to address disagreements, disputes between individuals, groups within the congregation in a constructive and respectful manner. Never have I seen in the body of Christ so much disrespect among the saints of God. We talk down to people, we talk at people. But the aim with conflict management is to be able to promote a positive communication, to find out what is needed, what is understood. So there's collaboration. We're trying to find a solution so that everyone involved. Now, I know when you're dealing with us's, our people, it can be hard to find a solution that is going to be productive for everyone. But you've got to put forth your best effort by you as a leader understanding conflict management. So now without this proper training, conflict resolution, church leaders are going to struggle in navigating disagreements, conflicts within the community. And when that's not there, it's going to lead to a lot of division and a lot of disunity. So I wanted to just cover the first issue that we are going to be faced when a church leader is not properly trained. So join me on next week. We're going to cover another one of the three. There's three main issues. Today, we covered communication, talking about how we need to be able to build our communication, because when there's a lack of effective communication, there's going to be major breakdown. So join me in episode number 13 on next week as we dive into the second issue, which is poor decision making. Poor decision making. Until next time, this is Apostle and Bishop Martin Wilson. Remember, God is the greatest power, and you are absolutely not defeated. God bless.
You have been listening to the Black Church Leadership Podcast with Master Life Coach and NLP practitioner, Apostle Martin Wilson. We ask that you follow Apostle on all major podcast outlets and the official website www.wilsonleadership.org.
Sponsored by Billy Ryan Life and Executive Coaching and the Ecclesia Ecumenical Leadership and Church Growth Development Network. Executive Producer, Billy Ryan.